Member is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just try and lay out the reality that you were faced with. First of all, you would not have been seeking large additional funding or large amounts of additional funding had it not been for the PIF entering the scene, correct? I mean, you're always seeking resources, that type of thing, but it's only because of what the kingdom did, correct?
That's correct, Senator Johnson. It's only because of LIV that we're sitting here today.
And again, you're dealing with an entity that's 500 times larger than you in terms of financial wealth. Mr. Dunne, who is Roger Devlin?
I've never met a Roger Devlin. He has emailed me. He is a member of a golf club over in England. He works, I believe, as an investment banking capacity, and he had emailed me a couple times about possible discussions about getting together.
I believe he had helped Saudi Arabia invest in some soccer team or whatever.
I believe his partner is one of the co-investors with Yasser.
So
That's
he had a
correct.
relationship with the Saudis,
He
a
did.
commercial one.
He does, to my knowledge.
He reached out to you in January saying, the time may be ripe to sit down and try and repair the breach. And you rebuffed him at that point in time. You weren't ready for it. Is that a fair statement?
If I may answer, Senator, my attitude was all of the people other than the guy with the money we shouldn't talk to. We should just get to the spiritual leader. And because everything that was happening didn't make any sense to me. So I didn't want to waste any time talking to anybody, and my advice to the commissioner was don't waste any time talking to anybody other than the guy with the money.
And who's that guy with the money in your mind?
The governor, Yasser al-Rahman.
Okay. On April 14th, 2023, Mr. Devlin emailed you, and the final line in his email states, I fear the Saudis will double down on their investment and golf will be split asunder in perpetuity. I mean, I read that and I recognize what reality the PGA was facing. I mean, is that kind of typify one of the reasons you decided to reach out to the Saudis?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. They didn't have to double down to create the problem that we already had. So if they just kept doing what they were doing, it would be significant enough because the PGA Tour it's not that big in terms of players. So if they take 5 players a year, in 5 years, they can gut us.
Again, the PGA was facing existential threat because of the PIF and because of LIV. So you're responding to that existential threat. So now you've agreed to reach out to Yasser al-Rahman. What did you make of the man? I mean, tell us a little bit, what was his motivation? I mean, I realize you can't necessarily get inside his head, but can you just kind of describe for us why were the Saudis doing this? Or why was Yasser doing this?
Well, thank you, Senator. Obviously, I'm not inside his head, but my perception, and as I said, I told the commissioner that you should send someone only to speak to him. And in April, he chose me to reach out to him. I went out to meet him, and unlike everyone else that is involved with LIV, where they're very acrimonious towards the PGA Tour, he said he respected the tour, respected how they did things, and I was surprised by that. He didn't have the attitude that, frankly, a lot of the management people had, and so I thought it might make sense to put the man with the money and our commissioner together for another meeting.
Describe the challenge you have as the PGA, compensating the top players, compensating everybody, and also attracting top players to come to your tournaments, which is what you need to attract the audience, the viewership, the TV deals, the sponsorship. Just talk about that challenge in general of managing just PGA Tour golf. Either one of you, whoever.
Yeah, I think Rob,
So we represent all the players. And so our, process we have to go through is allocating resources that the players earn through competition We're performance-based, a pure meritocracy, as I think as you said, Senator Johnson. And so we try to balance the allocation of resources among our top players and the ones who are performing at a top level on a regular basis, while at the same time maintaining earnings opportunities for all of our players. The players who are performing well, our top players, those are the ones that the fans are interested in, and fans tune in and watch, and they drive our primary revenue streams, media and sponsorship. And to the extent that LIV Golf has been successful in taking away some of our top players through their irrational, economic business model, that puts pressure on our ability to maintain our primary revenue sources. And if they continue to do that, we would, as you said, would have faced an existential threat.
Mr. Dunne, you've done a lot of deals, right? And you've been in a lot of negotiations. I've done a lot of negotiations myself. I've never had to do them in public. I want to emphasize for the committee, for the audience, that you don't have a deal. You've ended the litigation, which took a big liability off your plate, and I would certainly, I've been involved enough litigation that you never know the result. I mean, it's always a big risk, right? Talk about how difficult it is for the PGA to have all this information exposed. Ideas get thrown out in negotiation. They're rejected. But even the idea of being made public is not helpful. Describe how difficult it's going to be to conclude this deal.
It makes it very complicated. I agree. You generally don't negotiate a deal in public, but we're committed to try to move from a framework agreement to a definitive agreement, because we believe that will allow us to continue our leadership in professional golf and our tournaments to be operated in accordance with our mission and our standards for our players and for charity. We think that's very important, but these proceedings make that even more difficult.
Mr. Price, as we spoke over the phone a couple of weeks ago, and I read the framework, which immediately got leaked, it struck me as this is a kind of a win-win situation for the parties involved. They basically, it sounds like the Saudi got a seat at the table in terms of golf, but PGA retained its control over the game, over the competition. Mr. Dunne, can you just kind of speak to this? I mean, in any negotiation, what you want in the end is a win-win for everybody, and you can move forward successfully, as opposed to acrimony and destructive behavior moving forward.
Senator, that's the goal. I really understand Senator Blumenthal's concern about not having them take over. That's the last thing in the world we want. It's just, and I think through this agreement, we can get a win-win situation. My fear is if we don't get to an agreement, they're already putting billions of dollars into golf. They've got a management team that wants to destroy the tour. And even though you could say take 5 or 6 players a year, they have an unlimited horizon and an unlimited amount of money. So it isn't like the product is better. It's just that there's a lot more money that will make people move, and that's, I'm concerned with exactly what the senator is worried about. I'm more concerned, though, if we do nothing, we're going to end up there. They're going to end up owning golf. If we don't, if they can do it. Because it isn't that big. It's only a couple hundred players.
I share that concern.
I'm deeply concerned.
And I sympathize with the position you're both in. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.